Hello.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Going fine, thanks.
Um, where can I call you, Ismo?
Yeah, it's Ismo. And what about you?
I'm Joe, or you
Joe.
can
Okay.
or you can call me Mosaka by my alias.
All right.
Are you in Europe?
Yeah, I'm in Finland, Helsinki, Finland.
Oh, okay. So it's about 9 p.m.
Yeah,
No,
it's 7 p.m. here.
7
So
7 p.m. Got it.
yeah, we just went to the daylight saving time, so it is 1 hour later than usual.
Ah,
So
I
where,
see.
so are you in the US?
I'm in Canada right now,
Okay.
Vancouver, Canada.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate your questions on the Slack and your contributions. That's amazing.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to get into the project a bit, trying to figure out how things are going
Yeah,
and like
yeah, we'll
yeah.
definitely talk about all of them today. Super excited for it.
Okay.
Yeah, we are just waiting for people to come and we'll start maybe, 2 minutes later, 3 minutes.
All right. So
I've
about
never,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying I have never been to Finland before.
Yeah, I've never been to Canada. I was in Detroit. Now there was the
The
KubeCon was
KubeCon,
there.
I was there
Yeah.
too.
Okay. So that was the closest I've ever been to Canada.
Yeah, I was pretty close actually.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Seattle?
No, never.
Mm,
Intel has offices in Portland, so I've been there but
I
never
see.
to Seattle.
I see. I
Hi guys.
All right.
Hello.
Have you ever are you going to Amsterdam this year?
No. Hello. Unfortunately not so. No. How about you?
Wait, sorry, I got some issues. Okay, I accidentally triggered Siri and it completely took over the sound. So I didn't hear you, Ismail. Can you say it again?
Yeah, I was just asking if you are going to Amsterdam.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
The AI takeover, yeah. So funny. I will paste the link to the agenda and note to the chat. All right, and in the meantime, can everyone enter your name in the attendees list? I know that you can't modify the doc directly, but probably you can just comment there and I will just accept the comment. I just want to confirm everyone can see my screen okay. The font is big enough. Awesome. All right, let's get started. So welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the first ever Runwise and Continuity Weizenship's community meeting. And in this meeting, we hope to address your questions. We hope to interact with you all because you're awesome, and to do project plannings, go through the issues, and talk about PRs in details. And before we begin, I just want to give you some general information about this meeting. So we'll use this Zoom link. It's permanent every time we enter this meeting. And this is the doc for agendas and notes. So every time we have a meeting, we just open another page for this doc. And this meeting happens every Tuesday for 2 weeks at 9 a.m. Pacific time zone. And I usually say, bi-weekly, but it's confusion. So I say every Tuesday for 2 weeks, and it's about an hour. And Runwise is a continuity project that facilitate WebAssembly workloads in Kubernetes. And this is our README. And we also have a Slack channel hashtag Runwise in the CNCF workshop. And Continuity Weizenship currently sits in the Days Labs organization, and this is our README. All right, because this is our first ever community meeting, I want to give some time to everybody to introduce yourself, name, where you're working at, and why you're interested in Runwise. I will start myself. I'm Joe, and I am an open source software engineer at Microsoft. I'm working on the WebAssembly upstream, as well as working on services for AKS to bring WebAssembly workloads in it. And I'm very interested in Runwise, well, first because I'm a main contributor to it and to the Continuity Weizenship. But most importantly, I think it's at the right abstraction level to facilitate WebAssembly workloads in Kubernetes and can utilize the great and awesome ecosystems that are built around with it. All right, who wants to go next?
I'm happy to
go ahead.
Happy to go next. So my name is Daniel Lopez. I work for WhatsApp Labs at VMware, and our interest in Runwise is to adopt it to run some of the projects that we have, like WASM Workers server on Kubernetes. Potentially using Runwise. We have a proof of concept that we haven't yet released, but we are working on that, and I'm here in representation of the team doing that. They may actually be able to join, but they had a conflict, so I decided to come here and say hello.
Awesome, welcome.
I'll go next then. So hi everyone, my name is George Lukic. I work at Docker. I'm in the runtime team. I'm a maintainer of Moby and the Docker CLI. And same as you, I find the solution for running WebAssembly workloads in Kubernetes or Docker quite nice. And I was kind of surprised how that was the only thing that we needed to change to make everything work. And I'm here, interested in making Runwise work with Docker also.
Great.
Yeah, if I go next, I'm Ismo Puustinen. I work at Intel Finland, and Intel has been contributing to the WASM and WASI space a lot, but I'm from the cloud team here. So we are looking at Containerd and Kubernetes and such. And it's my job kind of to see that how the WASM and WASI world could be combined with the Kubernetes world from Intel's point of view, maybe looking at some Intel technologies that are available on some servers and all that. So that's me. Nice to meet you, all of you.
Nice to meet you. All right, do we have anyone else wants to introduce yourself?
Go next. I'm James. I also work at Microsoft. I'm on the same team as Joe and Dan, and I am focused mostly on Windows containers. So I've been working to kind of make that work all the way through the stack. The TTRPC PR just merged last week. I can't stick around too long because I do have to go to SIG Windows at 9:30, but nice to meet you all.
Okay, I'll give introduction. I'm Wilson Wang. I'm from ByteDance. I'm also interested in WebAssembly. I'm now currently doing WebAssembly related fast system development. And also in my team, we're also doing a lot of cloud native related development. So that's why I'm joining this community and see if we can also contribute back to the open source community. Nice to see you guys.
Awesome.
All right, maybe I can go next. So I'm Dan, or Danilo. I work with Joe and James on projects like Runwazi, Continuity Wasm Shims, and Spider Lining at Microsoft. Currently in the Runwazi project, I'm going to be working with James on bringing the Windows support or Windows containers. Nice to meet you all.
Hello, so I may go next. So my name is Angel. I'm part of the Wasm Labs team in VMware. I'm working currently on a project called Wasm Worker Server, which is about running serverless application on top of WebAssembly. Yeah, I'm already aware of the Runwazi project, and I was exploring Runwazi and the container shames with Wasm Worker Server. And yeah, that's the reason I'm here to learn more about this project. And nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Angel. Hello, everyone. David Justice, engineer at Microsoft, working with Joe, Dan, James, and Brian. I hope I didn't miss anybody because that would be awkward. Just looking to get more people into the project and help where we can.
Great. Do we have anyone who wants to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Brian. I work on this stuff with David and everybody.
Great. And welcome. It's great to see so many people from a diverse set of companies here. That's awesome. And if you come late, please comment your name on the attendees list on here, and I will just accept them all, so they will be here. All right, and so the structure of this meeting will be, we have recurring topics, and every time we'll welcome new members and ask new members to put the names on attendee list. And at the end, we'll do kind of a milestone review, and we'll talk about the agenda for the next office hours. And besides recurring topics, we also have open discussions where before the meeting, we'll ask people to suggest any new topics and questions to put on the open discussions. And so we would try to address all of them in the community meeting. All right, so if we don't have any questions, I will just go to the open discussion, and Ismail has a few questions here about the roadmap, the project, and document the security process. And I have a topic to bring up to add new maintainers to Runwazi. And I think we have quite a few candidates here who have made major contributions to Runwazi. All right, so for the roadmap, Ismail, have a question about, should we plan for some release content, what is needed for 1.0 release?
Yeah, hey, sorry about hijacking the agenda this way. So so I did have a lot of questions, and I was thinking that it would be great to hear your opinions and thoughts about all of this. But if you have any other stuff that you want to discuss or anything, then we don't need to go through all of these. But yeah, just something that I was wondering about.
Yeah, we don't have so much things to talk about in the agenda here. So I think we can start with your questions. And if you have time later, we can discuss some issues and PRs in the repo. How does that sound?
Yeah, so the first question was just that, like, what's the roadmap? So there has been talk about that this is not like ready yet, and we are aiming to get like transparent working Kubernetes support like later this year. But like, what are the steps for us to get there, the milestones and such?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think we have any plans for the 1.0 release. Correct me if I'm wrong, David and Brian. Do you have anything to add to here?
I'm sorry, I should have put up my hand. I will do that next time. So I don't think we put much thought into it at this point. I think there's a lot of operational stuff that we need to do. There's like next to no logs. Like it's very proof of concept at this point. Like we need to make this easier to maintain in production, like emit metrics, logs, telemetry, all the good things that you want to have when you're running a piece of code and be able to observe it, right? I think we need to look at security. We need to evaluate and look at different threats and model threats and make sure that we are resilient in the face of an adversary. That's beyond just like features and stuff, right? So I also think that we're, from my point of view, we're building on a platform that's still moving, right? Like we're on WASI preview 1 right now. We're gonna have WASI preview 2 coming up, preview 3. Hopefully, like WASI starts to stabilize. There might be changes with threading, garbage collection. There could be a lot of things that could cause breaking changes. I am in no, my opinion is we should be in no hurry to get to 1.0. We should let the ecosystem around us evolve, and we should keep improving and improving and improving. And when we finally get to a point where we feel like we are truly stable, then, or we can be stable and be compatible going forward, then that's a good conversation to have, I think.
Brian?
Yeah, I agree with most of that, or all of that. Not most of it, all of it. I absolutely do. And I think to take that even further, we have in Tree right now, we have like 4 crates or something like that. And I think all of them in terms of 1.0 readiness will need to be treated differently. Like, so there's the core library that kind of helps get your runtime going. That's not related to specifically WASI, or it's, well, I guess it's kind of the intersection of OCI and WASI, and getting to a point where we have as little duplicate code in all of these shim implementations, and there's like 4 that I know of right now. There's the 2, there's WASM-Sign, WASM-Edge, and then Slight and Spin and Deus Labs. I don't know of other ones. Sorry if you have one and I don't know about it. But right now there's a ton of duplicated effort in each of those projects. And so I feel like the core library is not anywhere near any place to be like, okay, this is ready to mark 1.0. And in terms of the actual shim implementations like Wasm Time and Wasm Edge, we have a long way to go for WASI to be ready. Like, to me, once WASI is a production ready implementation or spec, then we can look at what those implementations look like for production as well. If that makes sense. Because like right now, you can't really do much. You can spin up a quick thing, or you can have a long running thing, but you can't kill it without potentially destroying data, and can't have a socket. There's like a lot we can't do right now because of the WASI spec and how limited it is. So basically, we have a ways to go, and yeah, we haven't really planned anything at the moment. We're just kind of seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, and making changes. I think there's a lot of progress right now in terms of actually complying to the OCI spec in terms of, well, we're on a Linux machine. We want to make sure the Wasm Time runtime is actually isolated like a normal container would be isolated on top of the Wasm isolation as well. So that at least is progressing pretty quickly. And hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll have like a full container implementation for that. So.
And I just want to add one thing, Ismail. I just want to check in from, just want to collect the views from your perspective. Like, what are your expectations and what you are looking for 1.0?
Yeah, I guess I'm not quite sure what that should be, but in some sense, everything should be pretty much transparent as if you were running like run C, and I guess that also like involves that somehow run WASI or the shims should be shipped along like like along with some container D distribution or similar, so that somebody could just like start using it. I think that would be something. But yeah, but I also like agree what you have been saying, and I was mentioning previously that we have the various like this Intel sponsored WASI proposals and such coming up, but they are nowhere near complete also. So in that sense, I'm also not in any kind of hurry. And I guess that also like answers the next question about the API stability. So if we don't want to kind of stabilize yet, then let's just like do it as good as we can and not worry too much about that. I was a bit wondering about the spin and slide shims, that what is kind of their like position in a sense in all this ecosystem. Is somebody already using them for production, for example?
Yeah, so for Azure Kubernetes service, we have a preview version of the WASI node pool. And in that preview version, we are running the slide shim and the spin shim in productions. So we have user clusters running on AKS using those two shims. And I do believe the spin shim and slide shim are just added to the Docker desktop.
Last week, yes.
Yeah.
So if I can add a follow-up question related to this point. So currently we are working on an integration with Run WASI and Wasm Worker Server. We have already some proof of concept, which actually works and can run Wasm Worker Server project directly the same way as spin and slide. So is there any requirement or I don't know, process to follow to add when we submit the pull request to add Wasm Worker Server to the I think it's contained these shims, Wasm shims repository, that will automatically move those shims into the AKS offering, or do we need to follow any process to be sure that our shim is also published there?
David.
Oh, no. We should probably talk offline about that. we have not been, we've been very selective about the shims that we're running, obviously because we have to maintain them and make sure that folks aren't having too bad of a day. So I definitely think we could. I just want to take some time to review and make sure that what we're going to be running, we have at least tests around it that we feel comfortable with. When we start to run this on our own infrastructure, we start to get a little bit, we need to be careful. We need to make sure we dot the I's and cross the T's. But yeah, I'd totally be open to it because I absolutely love what you all are doing with dynamic languages. And I think it would be really useful.
That's good. Thank you.
Awesome. I would take that as an action item to follow up. Brian?
You're mute, Brian.
Thanks. I just wanted to add that in the topic of additional shims, I think one of the things to think about is WASI. It would be nice if WASI didn't force us to have all these different shims. I don't know if that will really work out, but that is something to also look out for. Like it'd be nice to have a shim implementation that can work with whatever application you want to provide. But of course, every WASM thing is might not follow the WASI way of doing things. So that's a whole other topic. But yeah, just to add that.
Follow up on Brian. I want to add my 2 cents. The biggest hurdle I'm seeing for WASI is the lack of sockets. And so both Spin and Slide and Wasm Edge added their host implementation to handle sockets so that they can open a HTTP server to handle HTTP requests. With the upcoming WASI Preview 2, which I think just got announced in Barcelona, it's adding the socket support, but it's doing in a way that just adding the interfaces with WASM component model using the WAIT IDL interface definition language. The implementation of the sockets are not in the standard libraries of the programming languages like Rust and C yet, and they are working on that. So once they are in the standard library, you can compile for example, Rust program with sockets API, sockets to WASM WASI module. And at that time, I think it will be very useful, and we can go back and revisit if we really need many shims. All right, let's move on to the next question for project. Create a collection of task WASM modules. I take it as asking for like more robustness of the test cases.
Yeah, or I was thinking that since we start to have like features in OCI, like for example, you can have like device files mounted to the root file system, or you could have masked paths, or you could have seccomp filters, these kind of things. Then we need to have some sort of like WASM modules which actually test that these features do function as we expect them to. And I was kind of just thinking that if this is something that should be part of the lib container crate, and I guess they are doing their own testing, but also kind of this, in a sense, this end-to-end, I'm not sure if that's the right word here, but this kind of more like integration level testing could maybe be part of the Run WASI library itself. So maybe that's just like one this feature request that I had in mind. And it's related to this trying out of the various OCI features, which was the second bullet point there in the list. And the third one is also related that can we assume that all of the runtimes should be able to go through some sort of like sanity check, or what is kind of the common base that they all support, and which tests should be like runtime specific? And then the final point was about this, that what Brian was just talking about is that this, like, can we just depend on the proposals somehow, make the runtime classes or whatnot work in that sense, that we are depending on those rather than the runtime implementations themselves.
All right, do you have any comments on here? I just realized as a host, I can't raise my hand, so I will just jump ahead. We definitely agree that we need more integration tests for Run-WASI. And before I go ahead, just want to ask you, lib container, you refer to the lib container crate from Yoki?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yeah. So I guess what will happen is we are currently holding off the PRs for Run-WASI until the Yoki PR kind of resolved or merged in to Run-WASI. And by that time, we will have more comprehensive cover of OCI features. And then we can add more WASM modules to test, especially WASI modules to test out the OCI features in Run-WASI. I think Brian has a comment on the chat. Brian, do you want to elaborate?
Not really. No,
Alright.
I think there's some things in the OCI spec that we probably can't deal with. Like, we could certainly put device files into the rootfs, but I don't know how a module would handle that, because those are Linux devices and not, unless somehow we have some interface where the WASM host is kind of being a middleman for those devices. It's interesting to think about anyway. In any case, yeah, there'll be stuff like that where it's just like, yeah, we can wrap it, but we can wrap the runtime or whatever in a full container. But there's gonna be some things where it may not make any sense, or at least for now.
Yeah, just to add a bit to the devices question, is that some of the Intel technologies, like these cryptographic accelerators and such, they are like exposed via the device files. But I guess the idea is that in the end that everything will be abstracted like behind the WASI APIs instead of using directly. But still, we kind of need to do it so that, you know, the runtime itself can only access the devices which are provided to that via the OCI spec, because the kubelet will anyway be handling the device allocations itself, and we can't kind of affect that.
Yep, I agree. And I think there's a lot of hardening to do to make sure that bugs in the runtime don't necessarily escape the container, and kind of get that defense in depth there. So.
Yeah, agreed.
That's the stuff that keeps me up at night.
All right, do you have any other things to bring this question? If not, move on. All right,
We
so
have
the
a
last
question in
one.
the chat, Joe.
Oh, okay. George,
Yeah.
George said, wouldn't YZNN need devices? I already forgot, does YZNN currently utilize GPUs?
I'm not sure. I don't really know.
I think probably like I was in the like the WASMAX meeting actually. They discussed with I mean they mentioned that the YCNN, I think it's like not directly like need access to the hardware like the hardware device, but it needs like some framework support, for example, like OpenVINO or some like PyTorch, or later, if they want to support YCNN, then the YCNN will be able to directly use the underlying support from these like the frameworks.
David,
Yeah, so it can do it both ways, right? So as Wilson was saying, it depends on the underlying framework. So the link that I posted is from Redu like 2 years ago, but it basically shows you can use GPUs when they're available to you, or just use the CPU to do your inference. But yeah, that brings up a good point, right? That means you need to have access to that device. However, the WASI interface itself, like your component, wouldn't necessarily know that you have access to a device. Your component would just give you the WASI-NN interface, and your host is the thing that's going to be, doing that lower level stuff. We would want to have that device exposed to the runtime that is running your component. And we should keep that constrained to only the device or the amount of device that you're allowed to have, right?
great. If we have no further comments, I will move on to document a security process. And Ismail paste a link here.
Yeah, so the link was to the Containerd security process. So, I mean, we could just use that one.
Yeah,
Like if you find any security issues, document them via the Containerd security process, but we just need to tell somebody about this. So I'm not sure that how the project has been set up that is anybody on the Containerd security mailing list, for example.
Ryan, do you know anyone there?
Yeah, I am probably on it as well, but yeah, and looking at other Containerd projects, looks like they just put a link to the main project security MD, which I think works for us. So I think just telling Containerd maintainers, hey, this is what we're doing, I think it's totally fine, and they can route stuff accordingly. And in fact, there's already security groups and stuff set up on the org for Run WASI. So I think probably all we need to do is add that document and let them know.
Awesome. I'll take that as an action item to add a document. Do we also need to enable the and do we need to enable anything on the repo settings? Or is it automatically enabled for all of them?
It's probably already on, but I can check.
Ismo, thank you for bringing this up.
Yep.
It's really important.
Yeah, the last item I had was just about benchmarking because right now there's like there are like other projects in the same space. And I'm not sure if we are doing anything which kind of like, you know, isn't like hurts our performance or makes it like less than anybody else's performance or anything like that. But people are interested in these, especially like when we start like thinking that can we like accelerate things or where are the bottlenecks and all that. So I was actually trying to find any like real world benchmarks, meaning that something that isn't just like a, you know, a hello world kind of application, but like a WASI app which does something, but they are not very common, it seems. So this is more of a question that how do we want to do benchmarking? Because that's like also like one of the selling points, I guess, of WASM compared to like native containers, that it starts faster and is smaller and faster to grab the binaries and all that. But what is kind of the runtime performance?
Yeah, I think even today, at least on the WASM, or sorry, the WASI stuff that we have in Tree, we're actually dramatically slower for startup and everything because we have to compile the WASM module just in time. So I'm not sure I want to have to deal with. Sorry, I should have raised my hand. I'm sorry, David. I'm not sure I want to have to deal with benchmarking WASM as a whole. Certainly, it might be interesting to be like, okay, what is it like to spin up, I don't know, Fibonacci in WASI versus RunC? That might be somewhat interesting, but I feel like the overall WASM community, and which of course we are a part of, but probably outside this project, really needs to show their numbers in terms of what they're advertising. This is faster at this, and this. I think in a lot of ways it's definitely not in terms of like just pure compute, but yeah, I think that's all I had to say. Just we can certainly compare against like the RunC shim, and certainly have. Well, this is how things happen in, you know, version 0.2 of RunWASI. We made these improvements in 0.3, and here's the effect of that. That would certainly be a great thing to have, and even part of the release notes and all that.
And I think, David, you raised your hand first.
Sure, I'll try to be quick. So I think we should shoot for benchmarks that are significant to the people that are using the software. So why would somebody want to use, execute WebAssembly workloads in Kubernetes cluster? Density, right? So how much more can I run on the same amount of compute and same amount of memory more significant than compute, perhaps. So if we are able to benchmark the things that really matter to folks, that's probably it would probably be the most meaningful to the outside world. I'm curious, do folks have opinions on what would be valuable to them?
So yeah, so I just wanted to add a comment about benchmarking, and I think that because of the same thing that we were discussing before about having, let's say, a more heterogeneous ecosystem now because the shims work in a slightly different way, it's going to be complex to have a benchmark that can work for all of them because you don't know if you are targeting the, let's say, the performance of WebAssembly versus the performance of the shim that runs WebAssembly under the hood. So I think that maybe we are not still at that point to make fair benchmarks that can provide users, let's say, the information they are looking for.
Wilson?
Yeah, so I have some like these questions regarding the David just said about like the density. Yeah, I agree that like with WebAssembly module or like instances, I think definitely with the same amount of memory we can pack more instances running at the same time. But there was like another thing that we experienced before, because like in our current cluster, like if you have like more than like the 20 let me see, I think more than 20,000 pods, I think. Yeah, then if that's happening, then like you have like your work, like the your like API server and etcd will experience a very heavy workloads, and then that's something that is currently happening. So it's for our design, are we going to think about this and see how we can make the RunWASI work at the same time, considering how we can like the run it on the Kubernetes environment, so that we will not have like a problem if the customer is running too many like the WebAssembly instances in the cluster.
Wilson, that's a great point. And I'm glad you brought it up. And it's also a really great problem for people to have. Like, how far can we push Kubernetes until it just like frickin' falls over? Yeah, as you increase the number of pods, you can hit some scaling walls. And Kubelet, what is it? Brian, you may know, Kubelet is set to 120 by default, 120 pods per node.
Something like that.
Something in that area. So 100 pods of WebAssembly is not very hard to get. Like that's pretty easy for us to get into that range. And then you start thinking about IP allocations per pod within your infra. You start getting into painful stuff. Yeah, if folks have great ideas about how we can help it to help Kubernetes clusters to run better, and not take up so much time from the API server and Kubelet, that'd be super dope. Like that sounds really cool. I'd love to hear ideas about that.
So it looks like people are very interested in this topic. And how about we create an issue in RunWASI, make it epic, and just call it maybe like benchmarking. And we can have our thoughts and opinions on that issue, on how many ways and where and how we can benchmark RunWASI in Kubernetes. David?
Hey, Brian, I saw your post in a thread in chat. What is this long running shim? And what are you talking about? It sounds really cool. Actually, I know, but please tell me more. I put him on the spot. Sorry.
Sorry, my wife was trying to talk to me. So the long running shim is this idea, instead of having one shim process per pod and therefore one WASM runtime per pod, we have one shim process per node. So we can share the runtime, which is supposed to be more like a hypervisor, at least for WASM time or WASM Edge, that kind of stuff. So we can share that more like a host hypervisor across all pods, and that should dramatically reduce the overhead of the runtime, the overhead of all the shims, because I can't remember the numbers at the moment, but probably in Rust, like 8 to 10 megabytes of memory per shim adds up, and on top of the actual runtime not being able to share state between different pods. Yeah, I think going down that for the density side is probably where that needs to go.
So one question related to this, is this kind of similar? Because when I read the Runwasi documentation, it can run in 2 different ways. I think it's called normal mode and share mode. Is share mode looking for this kind of behavior, or it's something different?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, is the share mode.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Let me just jump in. I think another optimization we have talked about internally was having one shared WASM time. And whenever we create an instance, for that we pre-compile the WASM file into a module, and we directly start the instance from that module, so we don't have to load the file every time we start a pod.
Yep, and that is when I have a proof of concept, at least barely a proof of concept, as a PR on the repo, as a draft PR. But it needs some more attention. But yeah, that's definitely another place we can improve a lot, is pre-compiling everything and reusing the compiled state. But that has to, anytime the runtime changes, we're like you update WASM time or something, that compile state, it needs to go away as well. So
Ismail, do you want to explain the Waggy and Knative here for comparison?
No, that was just like an example really about that what kind of like other projects there might be, or other approaches into all of this. And I don't really mean that we should even try to be like apples to apples or try to compare, but it's just that at some point somebody starts comparing these, and we should just somehow be like like at that point like aware that what is causing what and how we stand up against other projects.
Awesome. All right, we'll move on. So to the next topic, I have added a agenda to add new maintainers to run WASI. I know that some of you folks here have made major contributions to run WASI, and we want to reward you by promote you to a maintainer. I'm not sure if we have a clear documentation of how we can promote to maintainers. So I'm just going to call David, Brian. Do you have any thoughts on here?
Yeah.
Go ahead, David.
I think we should clearly outline the contributor ladder. Normally you would see somebody progress from PRs issues to reviewer, then to maintainer. We should spell it out, and I know there's already existing documentation in Containerd for how that works. I'm not sure if we should follow that or some other flow. Brian, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I think Containerd has a pretty good outline thing of how basically the structure of like maintainers, which are invested in the management of the project, versus reviewers, security advisors. Basically, there's a nice breakdown. And I think that works pretty well. Especially like not everybody who wants to participate wants to be responsible for managing the day-to-day of making sure, I don't know, making sure a release goes through the right way and what have you. But I think it's great to bring people on to get reviews done and have a strong say in design and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think they have a really good process basically, and I think it's worth following.
All right, so I will take that as a action item to get contributing list and figure out the process. And of course, then I will ask if people really want to be maintainers. If they don't, I won't force them to be.
You get drafted. Sorry.
All right, that's it for the all the open discussions. Do we have anything to add to it? We have a few minutes left. Or we can talk about milestone review and add agenda for the next office hours. Isma?
Yeah, I mean, there's now the big item of adding support for Yoki lib container, and I've been trying to read through the code, and it's like a big project that it has been alive for a long time, and they're already doing many things. I think it would be great to get the developer to come to this meeting to talk about Yoki project and maybe what libcontainer does and how it does things differently compared to other like runtime implementations and all that. But I understand that they are in Japan, so this time slot might be very difficult, but it would be great if we could somehow have them here.
Totally agree. David?
I think that brings up a meta point about scheduling in general. Like this time slot is difficult for for some folks. It's definitely going to be difficult for Toru. We may want to reevaluate when the meeting is, or possibly provide a couple options. Like maybe we have like a great for Europe and Eastern US maybe, and then maybe one that's better for zones. I'm not sure. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Typically what we do is try to alternate the meetings. So if one of the meetings is somebody in the Pacific coast is going to have to wake up a little bit earlier or going to do and the same thing in Europe. So we try to do it that way. So it's not always the same people have to wake up early.
Another approach that I've seen people doing is the alternative meeting times, one for the early morning in Pacific time zone, one for later afternoon for Pacific time zone. The early morning is probably good for European folks, and the later afternoon is probably good for Asian.
Yeah, that would be the idea. But I think what I heard it was like having 2 meetings in the same day or 2 hours, or you're proposing like the first Tuesday of the month, you do it early morning and then okay. So yeah, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, that's precisely what I'm proposing.
And worst case scenario, somebody has like something really urgent and is not able to attend. they can always add it to the agenda, and kind of hopefully somebody can speak with that, or somebody from the same team.
Yep. All right, we don't have a milestone review for today, but I really want to take the last 2 minutes to talk about the agenda for next office hours. I think last time I talked with Brian, and you mentioned that we should talk about the UKPR. Is it something we still want to do for the next time?
I hope that we don't need to talk about it the next time.
Yeah, if it's merged in, then
let's get it in or get it changed to what makes sense. So that's, I think it's a good overall change. It just needs a little bit of tweaking. So
great. I don't have anything to bring to the next time, but I would encourage everyone to, if you have any questions or any topics you want to bring in, you can add this doc to add to the open discussions. So we have a template here. I will make another new page for next week, and then you can add comment to the open discussions. And thank you again for attending this meeting. See you next time.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Joe.
It's great to see you.
Bye-bye.
thanks.
See you.
Bye.